Hello, I'm Don Tapscott, and I'm the co-founder and executive chairman of the Blockchain Research Institute. And I'd like to welcome all of you to one of our semi-regular webinars. The topic today is a good one, the concept of an identity-based blockchain. And let me just begin by sort of giving a little background on the topic. Of course, in the past year, there's been a big explosion and interest in the whole issue of digital assets. And as you know, or if you don't, you should go to the blockchainresearchinstitute.org to have a look. We've developed a taxonomy of 9 different types of these digital assets. And they range from cryptocurrencies to non-fungible tokens, to tokens that represent natural assets. And one of these, of course, is a central bank digital currency, fiat currencies becoming digitized, where the holder of the money is actually a bearer and is holding, and these are bearer instruments. Now, and that's in a paper by Alex Tapscott called The Digital Asset Revolution on our site. Do have a look. It's available to everyone. And there are many, of course, different types of blockchain platforms out there with their own benefits and challenges. But when it comes to finding the sort of perfect platform for these assets and overall for the financial services industries, many of these have strengths and they have weaknesses. And one of these, a central bank digital currency, has what we might call a design trilemma, which is managing 3 issues. One is identity. How do you know that the person that you're dealing with is actually a person? That has to do with AML and KYC requirements by governments. Secondly is privacy. It's a big concern around central bank digital currencies. And the third is programmability. And these issues have come up constantly when different countries have explored CBDCs. And most blockchains aren't really capable of addressing these demands. And as a result of addressing the issue of CBDC-based cross-border payments. So today we're going to talk about one solution to this trilemma, and it's a new kind of blockchain architecture that's based around identity. And we'll call it an identity-based blockchain. And let's have a look and see what we think. And we're very fortunate to have today a pioneer in the field of identity-based blockchains who's going to join me in this conversation to explore some of the promise and challenges of these new platforms and the implications for financial services companies and for anyone interested in digital assets. So I'd like to welcome Phantom Seokgu Yun, who's the CEO and chief scientist at the Sovereign Wallet Network and the SWN Global. And Phantom is a South Korean national, over 25 years of experience in cryptography, algorithms, security architectures. And he's been providing security solutions to the Davos and G20 summits, to LG, Samsung, Yahoo, eBay, lots of several other multinational corporations. And he's a real authority in this area of professional achievements in academic research at the Korea Advanced Institute of Technology, University of Southern California. And he also founded Sovereign Wallet, which is the precursor to the Sovereign Wallet Network and SWN Global. And he currently leads what's called the MetaMUI platform, which is a CBDC and NFT, again, 2 of these types of tokens, specialized blockchains. So Phantom, welcome to the conversation today.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful to have a conversation with you today.
And where are you right now?
So I'm in Korea at this moment.
Okay. So depending on what time zone you're in. Those of you watching, Phantom's up very late right now. So, Phantom, could you let's start off just by telling our viewers about Sovereign Wallet Network and what led you really to the development of MetaMUI.
Yeah, thank you. So, as you explained earlier, that I was looking for a solution for CBDC, central bank digital currency. So a blockchain technology that satisfies the regulatory framework of current banking and financial system, while at the same time protecting the user's privacy, like the cash. So as everybody knows about that, CBDC is the kind of a solution that try to replace physical cash. So we want to implement the blockchain technology that emulate the characteristics of a physical paper cash. So it have to be anonymous, but it should be within the legal framework of the current banking system. Mm-hmm. And to find this solution, we have to solve the unique problem of CBDC design trilemma you just explained. So privacy, identity, and programmability cannot be achieved at the same time. However, I was able to solve this trilemma by combining the decentralized identity with a decentralized token blockchain. So it has identity part to satisfy the legal framework, and at the same time, it uses the decentralized identity to protect users' privacy. In fact, it has a better privacy protection compared to the solution that combines the blockchain technology with the centralized identity mechanism. In my opinion, the fundamental problem of this identity and the privacy is the solution that try to accumulate all the users' personal information in a single location. This kind of centralized approach is the one we need to solve to have a really safe and reliable privacy-based, privacy-protecting financial system.
So this certainly seems like a challenge. On the one hand, meeting the regulatory requirements of a government for knowing your customer, yep, and dealing with any money laundering laws and so on. Identification, on the other hand, to ensure anonymity and privacy. Sounds like the two things that just do not go together. Right. And how can you possibly solve both of these things at the same time?
Yeah, in fact, many of the central banks around the world still believe that these two characteristics, identity and the privacy, cannot be achieved at the same time. And then what they have right now is a kind of a choice, whether to go to fully anonymous and change the regulatory framework, right, or just use the conventional payment-based solution to implement CBDC. But one clue that I have is we can adapt decentralized identity mechanism, such as self-sovereign identity. So in short, this identity-based blockchain concept is that it's a combination of both identity blockchain and token blockchain. And so since we use the blockchain technology, identity blockchain is a decentralized identity system. Mm-hmm. And I mentioned that self-sovereign identity to implement this. So in identity-based blockchain, we write transactions data based on users' identity. So I have used the Web3 DID naming format for the identifier of the user. So in identity blockchain, such as MetaMUI blockchain that I invented, transactions is written like this. So DID A send the X amount of token to DID B. So since this is just an identifier, it does not contain any of the user's private information. So therefore, the privacy protection level is almost similar to the anonymous address of the most of the cryptocurrencies. And since this is identifier based, it perfectly satisfies the FATF travel law and other KYC requirements. So users' information can be tracked and also it can be the privacy information cannot be extracted from the blockchain. There is no information of the personal private information in the blockchain. And then those private information can only be presented and then managed by the users. So that's the way we achieve both privacy and the identity.
Well, that would certainly be an extraordinary thing because when it comes to CBDCs, I would say the greatest concern overall, and there are lots of concerns with them, is this issue that governments will partner with Big Brother in implementing them, and they will be able to track every single transaction linked to the identity of the entire population of individuals, not only in their country but elsewhere that use these things. And Orwell, had no idea how you could seriously undermine the privacy of individuals that way. And people say to me, "Well, Don, privacy is dead. Get over it. If you got nothing to hide, what's your problem?" And well, I'll let you comment on that, but a lot of people watching this know my view that this is stupidity. Privacy is the foundation of freedom, and these transactions that we're doing are part of our overall digital identities, and we need to get these identities back so that we can manage them responsibly for ourselves. Now I have a question that comes from that, but did you want to comment on what I just said?
Yes. Whenever the government, they try to have this kind of a little bit of identity kind of a violating system, seem to promote the idea that this is a new digital money that has a lot of programmability and they can promise a lot of new things. And many of the motivation for CBDC is the financial inclusion. So they try to provide a banking system to the unbanked people, but on a condition that they might sacrifice some of their privacy. And the way people think about this dilemma is that to implement programmability, we need to have a user's identity information. So if you're going to implement personalized text without knowing users' private information, it's not possible. So they are claiming that we need to collect every user's information and then process things in the parallel. But I will argue that there is another technology like federated running, and many of the privacy sensitive company like Apple, they have a way to implement this kind of programmability without sacrificing the privacy, without collecting every user's private information in a central location. So our approach in implementing something like algorithmic central bank and those kind of programmable money, we didn't collect everyone's information. We process the information on the edge of the user. That means on the user's device. And it is related to the original concept of Nick Szabo smart contract. But anyway, so if you process the private information on the edge of the user, never leave the user's device. And then only the processed data can be used for programmable taxation or, programmable interest and whatever the goal of any country's monetary policy. So there is always the way to do it.
So now this assumes, of course, that a government would be interested in implementing a CDBC that actually, CBDC that actually protects the privacy of citizens, which of course a lot of governments are not interested in doing that. But I think in many countries that this is a big impediment to these things moving forward, is politically and in the population, there's just too much unease and uncertainty about how a CBDC would be used. So, all right. So when you're talking about identity, aren't you, and clarify this, you're really talking about identification. The concept of identity is a much bigger concept, that it's not just about our transactions, but it's about our health records and about our location data and about our this trail of digital crumbs as we leave, that we leave as we move around in the virtual world. And all this data from many different kinds, what you got in the test, what medication you had, what diagnosis you had, and so on, gets collected into an overall identity that currently is captured by large digital conglomerates and also by governments. And there's a case that we need to get that identity information back. Am I wrong? But you're really focused on the issue of identification in a way that's done private through protecting privacy. Is that right?
So I just explained about identification, and identification is many of the important design issues in the identity-based blockchain, but many characteristics of identity, just like you mentioned, that my birth certificate and my nationality, my address, and my graduate record, and college degree, all this kind of different identity should be managed. And let's discuss about how to implement this. I mean, typical traditional approach is a centralized system, and then integrating or working on interoperability between these two heterogeneous systems. And this kind of approach is not efficient, not cost efficient, and then it is very difficult to implement global scale compatible system. And the typical approach that used to build this national infrastructure is like telephone network have this kind of approach, and other TV network has this kind of approach, but it takes very long time to penetrate every corner of the world. But internet has a very different approach, and it just have a simple protocol and then this kind of standard-based approach, and then more like a decentralized approach to build a global network. This is the most widely penetrated network, and then most efficient way to build a global scale, global scale infrastructure. And we are doing the same approach to implement internationally compatible and global scale identity system. And so fundamental concept for this one is that identity is not managed by the single entity. So my graduate degree is managed by the college, my university, and then my nationality is managed by the government. And then my reputation can be managed by my friend, saying that I'm a good guy or a bad guy or something like that. And all this kind of characteristic of identity should be issued by this another entity. To implement this, we need a decentralized public key infrastructure. So we have an identity-based blockchain, but identity blockchain means decentralized public infrastructure, which means that everybody can register their signature, digital signature, and issue the certificate. So not only just a single person, but the company, the university, government can have their digital signature and then issue the certificate. So my identity can be managed by all these different decentralized different entities, and then they issue the certificate to me. Right. So I can get a graduate certificate from the university, and then I manage those private information in my wallet, and then present to the company if I want to apply for the job to the company. And this kind of management and control is only done by the user who owns the identity, not by the company like Facebook managed our identity, Amazon managed our entity, and then Korean government, Canadian government managed our identity, and they all interconnecting.
Yes, and of course, this is one of the big themes of a sovereign identity is that the data is controlled by the user, and it's provided to someone who needs access to that data on a case-by-case basis. So, supposedly you get stopped by the police for a potential traffic violation. The policeman needs to know that you have a valid driver's license, and I guess that you own the car. They don't need to know what you bought earlier that day, or what educational level you got, or whether or not you were on a protest or something like that. So the question, and let's talk about architecture here for a second. So why build your own blockchain? I mean, there's lots of great blockchains out there. You could build on, I don't know, ADA or Polkadot or Cosmos, or maybe Ethereum or something like that. Why did you feel that you need to build an entirely new platform?
So in designing the MetaMUI blockchain, I reference some of the earlier design. Of course, most of the blockchain expert architect, they look at the design of the Bitcoin and Ethereum. That's one of the original design of the blockchain. And I do reference Polkadot and Tezos and those kind of advanced designs. So I also read a paper by the Professor Gun of Cornell University about Bitcoin NG paper. So I tried to solve many of the things, but basically, in short, the conclusion is that none of us satisfy the exact requirement of the CBDC, the financial design, financial blockchain system that is not suitable. So, for example, let me briefly mention about the peer-to-peer payment system. Cash is actually the peer-to-peer payment system, and in the everybody knows that Satoshi's original paper is Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash.
Right.
But the problem is that Satoshi did eliminate centralized mediator, but instead he introduced lots of decentralized mediators. So they're still mediators. So it's not really a peer-to-peer payment system.
Mediators like who? The miners?
The miners. Miners have to be mediators, and they have to agree on. So it's still the mediator exists. So this makes the performance barrier. So, and there are two barriers in the blockchain system. One is this mediator, because decentralized multiple mediators have to agree on the transaction confirmation. It takes time. And the second problem is that the transaction can be only processed in serial fashion, one by one. So if you're buying a coffee in Canada, I have to wait until your transaction finished. So if you're gonna build a globally scalable, digital currency, then everyone's transaction have to be processed in serial. So this is the protocol problem.
But aren't there, of course, there are other consensus mechanisms.
Yeah. Yes.
So we have not only proof of work, of course, proof of stake and others. You're talking about a whole new consensus mechanism here for establishing truth on the network.
Yeah.
What is
proof
it?
of So consensus. Consensus is the way to accelerate, make it efficient about this agreement, but it doesn't really eliminate the mediators. So to achieve millions and billions of transactions per second and unlimited scalability, we have to process the things in parallel. We need a new protocol design that can process the transaction in parallel at the same time. And the second, we need to completely eliminate the mediators. The sender and the receiver have to confirm and finalize the transaction between themselves without requiring the mediators. And without this, it's not possible to have this peer-to-peer world. In the future, we're gonna have a M2M commerce, IoT things. The self-driving car will buy the electricity while waiting for the signal on the road.
Yep.
And our refrigerator will buy the food by themselves. And those kind of machine commerce, we need millions and billions of transactions per second. But current blockchain technology is almost having trouble just implementing human transactions so far. So we need a completely new design. And one thing I come up with identity-based design. That means I just mentioned that this identity blockchain is the system for decentralized public key infrastructure. So let's think about, let's say you have a digital check kind of style. So I sign my check and send the money to you. Then you can just verify my signature and then done, boom. So this kind of a peer-to-peer payment is required. So we adopted the blockchain, but also we need a blockchain. Blockchain is the most secure. So for the higher volume transaction, we use the traditional blockchain. This is a large volume transaction, so number of transactions is not that many. So we can have this consensus mechanism to achieve
what consensus mechanism? Proof of work, proof of stake, proof of something.
So combination of proof of authority and then proof of stake, because we are identity-based and the permissioned public blockchain. That means on a condition in our blockchain, we know exactly number of the node. That means the block producer and the validator. Validator is exactly known. In our case, we don't even need a Byzantine fault tolerance, because we know exactly the number of the users, and then this is well-known user. So we can have basically the proof of authority is good enough. But if this authority node is doing something wrong or made a mistake, then we need a proof of stake to give the penalty for the bad work. So combination this one, but the important part of the design is this last mile, the small micro transaction. We need this identity-based, signature-based cash, digital cash system that only the sender and receiver can transact directly and then complete the transaction, confirm the transaction by themselves. This is the most important design.
Okay, well, this is obvious. I mean, inclusion, but for that matter, there are lots of these critical applications, remittances, which is a trillion-dollar problem in the
Right.
world, where basically the Korean doctor in Toronto that sends money to her mother in Seoul is getting ripped off right now, charged a lot for doing that. So, but I want to talk about where you are in all of this and how real this is. But before we go there, you mentioned the metaverse. Now, what's this got to do with the metaverse? Could you get into that?
So my definition of metaverse is that connecting the real world with this digital world, virtual world. Yep. So what are the major differences? Before we have this online game and then virtual world, but it's all by themselves. So if I make money in the metaverse, there is no way I can spend that money in the real world. Right. I mean, there is some way that indirect centralized media can do it, but not freely can be done. And also, the important thing is that identity and the ownership. I like to mention about these two things. To prove that this digital data is authentic and real, then we need a decentralized public infrastructure, and then this trusted entity need to validate the authenticity of this digital data. For example, let's say I'm publishing the digital art. Current problem with the NFT and the digital art technology is that you cannot really sure that this publisher is a real person or the fake one who just copied the real artist art and then selling the fake art or something like that.
Well, but an NFT, I'm not sure that's true. If I created an NFT, I know who created it. It's non-replicable. The provenance of the whole thing is known. Are you talking about something different?
Yeah. So in the NFT, you can prove that this is unique.
Yeah.
That's the innovation, but the identity of the publisher and the authenticity is not proven.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah. So in the metaverse, I'd like to know by the art that is published by the real artist. Mm-hmm. And then I can be sure that the artist's identity is verified by the trusted public entity, like government or art museum or something like that. And so to solve this MetaMUI's metaverse authenticity problem, we need an identity blockchain, and of course we need a real currency, digital currency. To implement digital currency, and I can buy things, digital asset in the metaverse having this digital currency. And then if I make money in the metaverse using this digital currency and I accumulate it, then I'd like to spend those money in the real world. Right. And if it's a CBDC, one major difference between traditional payment system and CBDC is that CBDC is a legal tender. That means every shop and everyone legally have to accept this payment. So Visa and then cryptocurrency, there is option. Some shop can receive it, accept this payment, but it's not guaranteed by everyone. But if it's CBDC, then everybody should accept this payment system because it's by the law. Otherwise, they are violating the law. So
this of course is I mean, these virtual worlds, traditional gaming worlds, and so on, Second Life had these problems. That there was no currency that was a real currency within the world. Secondly, you couldn't really protect assets, and NFTs now solve that problem. And the other one is identity. That all this data is being collected, but it gets captured by other parties, even though you create the data.
Mm.
So that could certainly be an interesting application. Let's move on here because we're going to run out of time. So sounds like a big, bold vision. What's happening? You got any governments to adopt this yet? And where are you? Do you have a beta implementation? Could you give us a current update on the status of the company?
Yeah, there are countries, they are already adopting our technology. The country name is the Irinji. It's a self-sovereign nation inside Australia. So it's an indigenous Irinji nation.
Yeah.
And one of the unique thing about this project is that they are not only publishing the CBDC, but also publishing national identity based on our MetaMUI system. And
they have their own currency, or do they use the Australian dollar?
They didn't have a actual currency. So this is the first nation who published the national currency only in digital form from the beginning.
Oh, interesting.
So if you think about these small micronations, to publish the paper currency, it costs a lot. I mean, anti-forgery system, and for the small population, it costs a lot. So having a digital currency is their good choice. And this is an environment-friendly one. The paper money, it can be also considered as a trash. And so they use our technology. And one of the other approach they mentioned is that MetaMUI is one of the first cloud-style CBDC publication platform. So to publish a CBDC, they can there's a blockchain technology, but they still need to program smart contract and blockchain application code to publish the coin or digital currency. The problem with this one is it costs a lot. And then this is a one-time programming. And based on the programmer's ability, there could be potentially some error is happening. So many of the ISO project, when they write smart contract and made a mistake, there's a problem. But this is a national currency. If they made a mistake, there's a really big problem. So this kind of a cost and the security problem can be solved by having Amazon style cloud system. So they don't have to program anything. They just license our technology and then typing the parameter, and then boom, they publish it. We published the CBDC in about 2 hours.
So is this your rollout strategy to go after micro economies and enable them to mint a new currency as a way of getting a foothold with CBDCs in the world?
Yeah, that's actually the blue ocean. So many of the country, many of the technology company, they are looking for this SI, system integration, custom build style project. And this kind of project can be offered by only the major nations. But small micronation, they cannot do it. And another unique feature about this MetaMUI technology that we can provide the currency alliance feature. So those small indigenous nations, they are looking for publishing the common currency, multinational common currency based on their national currency. So in the real world, Euro is a multinational common currency, but instead they have to give up their own national currency.
Mm-hmm.
It could be very difficult. I mean, theoretically possible, but in practice, it's very complicated to operate two currencies at the same time. Having a local national currency and then multinational common currency is a little bit difficult. But I designed a system that can set up the collateralized asset. That means when you publish a stable currency, you can set up the backup asset. Could be digital dollar or the gold, and then you can publish the stable currency. Similarly, we have this kind of mechanism in publishing the CBDC. So based on the combined currency basket of the local national currency, they can publish this multinational common currency similar to euro. So,
well, this of course is one of the holy grails of CBDCs, is that they would interoperate. And Mark Carney, when he was head of the Bank of England, basically, I don't know if he proposed this, but he certainly suggested it's an interesting idea for exploration, that we essentially go back to Keynes at Bretton Woods, and all these national digital currencies would roll up into what he called a global synthetic hegemonic currency, which would be some kind of currency for the world. Now, the Fed in the United States, I don't think is very enthusiastic about that idea, because it would replace the US dollar as the currency of record in the world. But essentially, is that what you're talking about here?
Yes. Actually, I'm a fan of the Freddie Hayek. He talked about denationalization of the money, and everybody can freely publish their own currency. And then I also love the idea of this Dr. Keynes, this Bancor idea. But at the time, the idealistically is good, but technically not possible. And the same thing goes to the cross-border payment. Mark Carney mentioned about hegemonic money, but he also mentioned about settlement coin. Bank of England, they're working on CBDC solution based on this common settlement coin. So that means it's the same as having a world common currency like dollar system currently.
Right.
So to implement this, we need this cross-border payment technology that doesn't require settlement coin. So
now, sorry.
Yeah, that is, I invented the meta blockchain technology. That means you can publish the currency without having any kind of program. And the base programming, like you don't have to do the smart contract. You can dynamically publish the currency based on the asset. So technically very difficult, but in summary, what I'd like to tell you is that now it's possible. So we can implement the era that everybody has their own currency, and then each sovereign currency can directly interact. This peer-to-peer cross-border payment network can be possible.
So let's end just talking about, this is a very bold vision to say. There's that old joke, fine line between vision and hallucination. But I'm all for having a vision. In terms of impediments, like a lot of many Western governments are concerned about CBDCs precisely because of these problems about, will they work? Can you ensure the privacy of citizens and so on? But banks and the financial institution are generally not very supportive of this idea too, because in some ways, to have a peer-to-peer currency within a nation, even globally, sort of takes away a lot of the moving money and value and storing value functions that banks perform. I know when The Economist did a cover story on this a while ago, they talked about a world without banks. But you have a case here that this could actually be really interesting for banks and for the financial services industry. Could you describe that?
Yes. And while discussing the CBDC, and many of even the central bankers, they worry about this commercial bank, because central bank publish CBDC, and then it could be the end of the commercial banking world.
Yeah.
And so and we have a system called fractional reserve bank, and many of the currency actually is published by this is credit money. Well known about this. Yep. And before there's no blockchain technology that support this. But I just mentioned of the meta blockchain. So to dynamically increase the token, when the bank lend the money, we need this meta blockchain technology that increase the currency in real time, dynamically. So it's a little bit difficult to describe the technical details in this short video, but basically what I'm saying is that we can increase and decrease the currency dynamically. So I come up with a solution that perfectly digitize current banking system without changing the banking structure. So some country have a law that the CBDC can be published by the commercial bank, not the central bank. I mean, they have an internal M1 and M2 currency, and those kind of mechanism still exists. But this kind of two-tier system is the basic idea, and they have some technology to implement it. But one very fully integrated kind of a holistic approach is blockchain. Is the MetaMUI is the first one. So MetaMUI provide not only just retail CBDC, but also wholesale CBDC and cross-border CBDC at the same time.
Nice. Okay, well, that opens a whole other can of worms too, beyond this particular webinar. Very interesting. I'm sure that lots of people watching this are going to want to dig deeper and look under the hood and so on. What's the next step? Should they want to do that with you?
Yeah, I mean, so we are building this MetaMUI system together with many of the entities. So this is a permissioned public blockchain. We are not, the blockchain and this internet is a decentralized system. Everybody work together. So in MetaMUI mainnet, network is operated by not only by us, but also many of the entities around the world. It could be central bank and the government, or the company who want to implement digital asset trading things. So anybody interested in us, join the MetaMUI network, and then build a brand new world together.
Terrific. Well, thank you so much. And congratulations on thinking big and having the courage to go ahead and try and make this happen. Everyone, I hope you found that interesting. I sure did. And we look forward to checking in with you again for the next webinar from the Blockchain Research Institute.